Bienvenidos, señores y señores, to another episode of the Bleed Lows Podcast. This episode of the Bleed Lows Podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your championship finals info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines and the latest matchup reports for this year's NBA and Stanley Cup finals. BetOnline is your sports intel headquarters this season, as we have you covered on all your insider sports wagering needs, from basketball and hockey to MLB, UFC, and boxing. It's the fastest and easiest way to get to your betting info, including the live betting options, and your favorite casino and card games are available to play right from your home. So get into the action today. Head to the website or use your mobile device to join, and be sure to use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your 50% bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. And joining us on the Carne Asada is Bleed Lows podcast contributor and also contributor to Dodgers Beat. You know him, you love him. He's our East Coast redhead. Cody, how are you, buddy? ¿Cómo estás?
I'm doing well. A little disgruntled over the road trip, but on the outside looking in for the Dodgers as they start their series, I believe tomorrow, right? And other than that, we're all good over here on the East Coast.
Yeah, they start on Tuesday against the White Sox of Chicago. Cody, real quick before we get into it, I just want to remind our listeners, because they may not have heard the news, but do we have any breaking news music, Babyface? Because if they haven't heard the news yet, if this is the first time they're hearing it, I want to give it all the splendor that it deserves. Do you got anything?
Let me see what I got for you here.
Babyface being the DJ on here. This is scintillating podcast material here. We probably should have.
So I haven't tested these out. So we're
this gets even better. This is even better.
Let's see what we get.
All righty.
Our breaking news.
For breaking news. Yeah, that's not breaking news. Okay, we'll save that for next time, and we'll get our shit together. But basically, we are the number one baseball podcast in Armenia. That's right, Armenia. For those of you who weren't aware that Armenia is a baseball hotbed, they are obviously Dodger fans because they listen to the Bleed Low podcast. We are officially the number one baseball podcast in Armenia, and as one of our listeners said, that's it. We're taking over market by market, and we're starting with Armenia. So your reaction, Cody, on that news?
I couldn't tell you where Armenia is on the map, but, we're moving up. So
there we go. We're moving on up to the east side. So, Cody, we wanted to talk to you because you were out in Philadelphia. You got to watch Bobby Miller up close. Now, I saw Bobby Miller against the Yankees, and he looked very impressive. And, I mean, up until this point, I know you got all the facts and figures, but, I mean, this is a guy that is, before his Philadelphia start, for his first three starts, he looked like the real deal. And I don't know if it makes it even, I mean, he's already doing great, right? But the fact that we saw Gavin Stone not look so good, I think makes Bobby Miller even look better. Now, watching him against the Yankees, I'm sitting there just going, I mean, Aaron Judge wasn't in the lineup, but still, I was very impressed. But that was a start at home. How did he look to you on the road?
Well, coming down to the East Coast again, he started against the Braves, who are a really good team. He had the home start against the Yankees and the Nationals. And Philadelphia is notoriously known for being a tough crowd. It's not as bad for baseball as it is for football. But, the crowd, the bullpen where I was sitting at and recording him, it's pretty close to the main concourse level, so anyone can see him. Anyone can chirp at him. And as soon as I saw him coming up the steps, the posture, the demeanor, he kind of just looked like he was ready to essentially just kick some ass. And I just feel like he's had that mentality every time you see him, for like clips from when he was in spring training or when I watched him when he played for Louisville, he just kind of had that same mentality. And it kind of is part of his game, and it's translated really well to the majors. And like I said, I believe he's surprised. He won't say it, but there's a little bit of surprise for himself. The Dodgers are obviously surprised. I was high on him, but I'm really surprised for how he's pitched. But yeah, just seeing him when he was throwing his pregame warm up, I kind of knew going into that start against Philly, I was like, if he settles in, like he's going to probably go another 6 shutout innings today, and then he ended up doing that.
So I keep hearing the comparisons to Walker Buehler. Do you see that? Or are we just not being fair to this guy that this guy's just somebody different?
I think the comparisons are valid to a degree because I think personality-wise, they're two very different guys. Because I think if we've seen Buehler's kind of more of a kind of on a Bellinger level, like kind of clubhouse comedian. He's very laid back, but when he needs to be serious and get hype, he is that. Miller just looks like he's very self-spoken, but when the emotions come out, as we've seen in the start against Atlanta, where he got through the 5th inning, and then against the Yankees in the 6th inning, like when he gets hype in the moment, like he'll let that like out and he'll show it on the field. Pitching style wise, I think the only thing that they're similar in is just they both threw 95 plus consistently. And other than that, like the comparisons to where they are, where Miller was when he got called up and Buehler was when he got called up, are also similar, where the Dodgers were kind of like fending for arms. They needed somebody to step up, and that was Buehler in 2018. I am starting to see that it's probably going to be Miller in 2023. But that's where I would end the similarities. But it's always a good comparison. It kind of shows the type of pitcher the Dodgers and the type of pitcher baseball kind of covets now, which is just those high fastball flamethrowers.
Babyface, have you've heard those comparisons to Walker Buehler? Do you see them? Because honestly, I guess physically maybe they have some sort of resemblance, but I just think Bobby Miller is different, man. I think this dude, I don't remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember Walker Buehler looking this good when he first came up. I felt like Walker Buehler got better as he went along. Am I wrong, Babyface?
Yeah, I think the comparison is probably the tight pants, right? They have those tight pants, and I guess kind of maybe just a little bit of that demeanor on the mound. They're kind of, when they get that big out, they'll show that emotion. But I mean, I think Bobby Miller is doing, a lot better than when Walker Buehler first came out, right? With Walker Buehler, I think, didn't he come out of the bullpen first, right? I don't even think he even got a start, right? It was the first out of the bullpen before he got an actual start.
Yeah,
right?
It was 2017. He got the call up and looked terrible.
And he had some bad. I think it was like a Rockies game, right? He didn't look good at all, right?
Yeah, Rockies, and I think maybe the D-backs. It was like the division rivals, and it was like the last 2 weeks of the season. But yeah.
So if you just compare from when they came and got on the scene, Bobby Miller by far. Like I said, he looks like the real deal, right? Four starts. He has an ERA under 1. The guy is he's showing that he is not afraid of this stage, this moment, and he is taking advantage of it.
So, Cody, I know the question is coming. It's June, and Bobby Miller's only up here because the Dodgers starting staff is just a mash unit right now. Babyface had even said it, before he started pitching in these last 4 starts, he didn't even have that many starts down in the minor leagues. They just brought him up. Knowing how conservative the Dodgers are with their pitching staff, when is the question going to come up? All right, we got to send Bobby Miller down. We got to give him some rest, because I know that Dodger fan is going to lose their freaking mind if Bobby Miller gets sent down, especially because the Dodgers are in second place right now. So they're chasing, and I get it. It's only June, but the eye test, and I think this is the problem that everybody has with analytics, right? The reason why, we just had our recent guest on the show, Francisco Rivera, who was just like, I hate the way baseball is being played right now because of the dependence on the numbers. If you rely on the eye test, you clearly, I think someone recently just said that Bobby Miller's already their ace. Like, this dude, what else does he have to prove down in the minor leagues? When is that question coming up, Cody? And how are the Dodgers going to answer that question?
I honestly, with the way he's been pitching the past couple, his first four starts, I think if he got hit around maybe against the Yankees or the Phillies or even the Braves, the question would have been, all right, when is he going to get sent down and when are we going to call him back up? But because Noah Syndergaard's hurt, because Julio Urias has a setback, because Ryan Pepiot's looking like he's not coming back to maybe now late July at the earliest, I think they kind of have to ride out with him and not sending him down. And you sent it out, I believe, a couple of days ago, where it's time for him to get his big league number. Like 70 isn't a major leaguer's number now. I think he's definitely proven that he's here to stay. And like we mentioned, they're very conservative about their pitchers. But my biggest thing that says that Miller's different is he pitched in college. So that gives him some more experience. That gives him some more time to work on pitches. And then two, he did have the shoulder soreness in spring, so he didn't really throw at all. So his spring training was that first couple starts that he had in the PCL with OKC. So that's kind of in hindsight, that was a good thing, I think, because it let him delay his start. So now he could start ramping it up here in June, July, August, September. Because at the end of the day, I mean, the D-backs are playing really good, but the Giants are right behind them. The Padres will start getting their stuff together. They're going to need starting pitching, and they're going to need dependable guys. And Miller, it looks like, I would say he is starting to be that guy in like 2023.
Babyface, if he keeps pitching like this, there's no way Friedman can send him down, right?
I mean, I don't think he can send him down, but when do we get to the point where, like, okay, we got to protect his innings, right? We get to that point where, like, okay, we can't keep him out there, 6-7 innings, we'll go 5, and then, they might have to skip starts because, like, they're going to need him in September and beyond, right? Getting to the playoffs. But, like, that's my concern. It's like, okay, when he gets up there, like, oh, you know what? He's pitched more innings than he's ever pitched. I think we got to either shut him down or scale him back. When are they going to get to that point, right? I mean, that's going to come.
So Cody, do you think that works? That theory of limiting the innings? Because I'm sitting there going, well, Walker Buehler now is on his second Tommy John. For the most part, I know Julio had injuries at the beginning of his career. He's dealing with a hamstring issue now, and they were very, very conservative with the way they used Julio. And so Julio, knock on wood, up until this point, has avoided those arm problems. So do you subscribe to this, that, we have to limit their innings? I mean, is that maybe contributing to why there's so many injuries to pitchers? Because they're not trained. It's already, I get it, it's a freakish, pitching is already freakish. Maybe we had the same number of injuries in baseball in the past, like in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and we didn't know about it. I mean, geez. Sandy Koufax's career was cut short because of arm problems. I mean, what do you do in a situation like this, Cody?
I mean, in the case of Miller, like I said, he hasn't had any major injuries in his career with college and in major league. He's already had that experience where he's definitely been on a throwing program since college, since high school. And other than that, as long as he hasn't had any major injuries, they can probably keep going out. But I can see with certain players why they do what they do. Julio's case, they signed him when he was a teenager, and they got to slowly build him up to get to the major leagues. Like when he made his debut, I believe it was the youngest or the second youngest player to ever make his debut. And they took their time with him. That's something that's kind of disgruntled him, but I would say it benefited his career for the most part. For Buehler's case, they needed to take his time with him because when they drafted him, he was injured. He had his first Tommy John surgery. And now he's coming up on, he got his second one, which historically, pitchers that have 2 Tommy John surgeries are never really the same. So we'll have to see with that. But with the way baseball is, it's so advanced in the medical field, and how trainers, physical trainers, teams get these guys on a throwing program, the stretches they do. Like I even coach like little league or like baseball, and these 12-year-olds are breaking out the bands, getting their arm programs on. I'm like, when I did this, I was just throwing to throw. You guys are taking it serious. And that's just how advanced it is getting now, where I think the injuries were a thing back then, but they weren't talked about. So a guy would be like, oh, my arm's hurt. Let me just drink a beer and put ice on it, and I'll be ready. But now it's kind of so advanced that every little injury they can analyze and be like, hey, we can treat this and then you'll feel 100%. So it's just teams being, I would say, overly cautious, but I would say it does work to an extent. As a fan, it sucks, though, because you see some of these things.
So I want to segue. You wrote an article for the Diamond Club about the Rookie of the Year. And what I thought was really interesting is you think Carroll for the Arizona Diamondbacks, he's running away with it. But you think if Bobby Miller keeps this up, he might have something to say with that, right?
Yeah. I definitely believe the NL Rookie of the Year race specifically was kind of waiting for some of these guys to get called up in like June, late May, June. Carroll, like I mentioned in my article, he's had a head start because he made the opening day roster and he kind of got a little bit of playing time at the end of last year. And the way he's been playing this year, it's definitely going to end him with a top 10 at least MVP finish, which should definitely put him almost guaranteed getting the Rookie of the Year. But, sometimes slumps happen or injuries. Say he gets injured in July and he doesn't rebound right or he misses the rest of the season. Miller also will get off to a couple of struggles, but he's gotten off to such a dominant start that in just 4 starts, he automatically, in my mind, and a lot of other people's minds, and Vegas's minds, put him at the number 3 rookie with the best odds to win the Rookie of the Year this year. And I think everyone knows that Miller's probably just not going anywhere. Everything that he's shown, it looks like it's major league ready. Teams haven't made adjustments yet, but I feel like him and the Dodgers are smart enough to make those adjustments. That way he won't get hit around too much. But yeah, I definitely think at the end of the season, the division race, Rookie of the Year race, it'll be down to those guys.
Babyface, do you think maybe after seeing that Cruz with the Rojos that he might have something to say with it? I mean, to hit a ball almost out of the stadium, that was nuts. And this is a kid who just got called up. But like Cody says, and we have a perfect example of it, dear friend of the Carne Asada, James Outman, started off great, and now it looks like maybe the league has figured him out, which is my concern. I know it's only been 4 starts for Bobby Miller, Babyface, but how soon is it that the people start getting the tape on him and he's going to start to have to make adjustments?
I mean, I don't know. I kind of think it's different for a pitcher, right? Like, because they're, they may have tape on them, but I mean, they're still in control of what they're throwing. If they're having a good day, a good game, they're going to be on, right? It's when they have those bad off days, they're not commanding, they're not hitting their location. That's probably when they're going to struggle the most. For a guy that hits or whatever, like they figured out James Outman or whatever. And I'm not sure Corbin Carroll, right? I think he's been pretty consistent so far, right? I don't think he's really hit a slump. So I don't know. He's been able to somehow get around whatever they got on him, and he's going to stay consistent, or he will run into that wall where they'll kind of figure him out and he'll get that slump for a bit. But I mean, Ellie De La Cruz, I mean, he looked like this guy was unstoppable. Like every time he went up there, he was either like hitting it 112 miles per hour, hitting it out of the park. I mean, when I was watching that game and that first at bat against Syndergaard, I'm like, there's no way this guy's not homering today, and that's the result we got. If he continues to play the way he is, I mean, he's gonna definitely be up in that conversation as well. Bobby Miller, the same thing. But why did Ellie De La Cruz get number 44? Wasn't that
Eric Davis's number?
Yeah, Eric Davis's number, right?
Eric Davis's number. Yeah, who knows? Maybe he's an Eric Davis fan. Maybe he wanted to pay tribute to Eric Davis. But look, I get it. We want to see Bobby Miller win this award, and it's way too soon. But I mean, we're already talking about 3 players, and that's just in the National League alone. 3 players that are very exciting to watch. Like the thing about Corbin Carroll, I think, and maybe he might be slump proof, is if he continues to keep the ball, put the ball in play with his speed never slumps, right? So it's like he's going to be consistently going to be able to produce. Cruz, that dude is fast too. So that guy has power. That's where I think it's going to be interesting, because if Cruz plays out the rest of the season and the Reds don't do something stupid with him, it's going to be interesting, because I think right now, even though Carroll has been more consistent because he's been out up in the league longer, I think the sexiness of what Cruz is doing, because he's just exciting to watch. That's the kind of thing. And I think I'm asking this to you, Cody, is do pitchers have a disadvantage when it comes to the Rookie of the Year? Like, aren't they going to sit there and be like, well, these guys are everyday players, so we're going to give the award to an everyday player?
Yeah, I actually, when you guys were talking, I was looking it up. My comparison to Miller for this year, if he does lose Rookie of the Year, would be to Spencer Strider's case last year, where Strider, in my mind, it could have went either way, but when everyone was doing their voting and stuff, I was like, yeah, I think Strider's going to win. I mean, like, he was the staple of that Braves rotation, led him to the playoffs. He started out in the pen, so he didn't get as many starts. Since Miller got called up later in May, he's not going to get as many starts as some of the other National League starters. But just being a pitcher and only starting every 5th day puts you at a disadvantage. So you would have to have like a really good year, like a Jacob deGrom rookie year, or Jose Fernandez when he beat out Yasiel Puig in 2013, like those types of years. So Miller, to stay on that, would have to keep pitching as well as he is. But like you said, Cruz probably, I would say, is even a better overall player than Corbin Carroll, because not only is he fast, but he has way more pop than Corbin does. And he could be a difference maker for the Reds, because I even mentioned that the Reds are only 4 games out in that terrible National League Central, and they could go on a little run with these rookies that they got. So that, I think voters kind of, not as much as before, but they do put that in consideration. They look for the flashiness and how did they help that ball club win. And you got 3 guys right now where the Rookie of the Year is on potentially a playoff team. So,
yeah, no, I mean, babyface. I mean, chicks dig the long ball, but for me, I think what makes, and Cody brought this up, I think the edge goes to Cruz just because not only, he has more power, but when that dude hits the ball in the gap, it's like, is he going to get a triple? And I know that Corbin Carroll has that same ability too, because that dude is really fast also. But it's the power, right, that separates them. And Cody makes a good argument. What if the Rojos all of a sudden, start fighting for contention on that? Then it goes back to the MVP argument, right? Where it's like, hey, the MVP has to come from a team that makes the playoffs. Do you think they'll use that argument in the Rookie of the Year?
I don't think so, because I think the Rookie of the Year, I mean, to me, the MVP, I've always felt that it should be from a playoff contending team, because that player, helps them get over that hump or whatever. But I think Rookie of the Year is completely different. I mean, it's just, who is this next star that's coming out, right? That just breakthrough star. And, I was kind of looking it up real quick. The last starting pitcher was deGrom in 2014, right? So it's been, we're getting on 10 years. So I think it is harder for a pitcher, right? Just I'd have to see who finished in the top 3 for that. But I think they just need to completely just break away from the pack and just and right now I think it's going to be hard because you got, guys like Carroll and De La Cruz. I mean, I think it's going to be really hard to break away unless something happened to those guys and they started slumping or whatever, or just Bobby Miller just insane, keeps under 1 ERA all year and just dominates, then he has a really strong case.
Look, I don't expect Bobby Miller to keep these numbers up. I mean, this is insane. But Cody, I mean, you've been following this team. the bullpen has the worst ERA they've had in years, and I know that this is something new to Dodger fan. They're not used to seeing the bullpen this bad, but the starting pitching is so thin. I mean, how do they fix this? And let's go with that first. I have a follow-up question, but how do they fix this right now?
You know, I mentioned in my article today, it's kind of non-Dodger-esque to have bad pitching, and it hasn't really looked like that in probably quite some time, at least with the talent that they've had. I think the last year that they had a really bad pen was like 2013 and 14, and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Since then, they've taken a flyer on some guys, and it's worked out in their favor. And this year, I think you're just seeing some guys that they took a flyer on years past that just aren't progressing anymore. Like, the bullpen is so like futile, it's so ever changing that you can't really like depend on guys that you depended on before. And a couple of those guys that I can think of right off the top of my mind is Alex Vesia, Yency Almonte. Brusdar has kind of been up and down. Sometimes he looks really good, but seems like he never get the whiffs that you'd think he would get for throwing 95 to 100 miles per hour. And then you got some bright spots like Shelby Miller's looked pretty fine. And it's just that the starters, just because they don't have those guys that go deep into games, you're using the bullpen more. And you thought they were going to get some more stability when Gonsolin came back, but then Urias got injured. Syndergaard still isn't looking good. You're depending on Grove, who is also rookie, but just doesn't really have it either. And Stone as well. He hasn't translated to the majors yet. The cliche answer would be to say, hey, pitching market for the trade deadline. But the trade deadline is going to be razor thin this year, just because of so many teams being in contention. Some of these teams may be stingy and think they have a shot. Like, everyone's pointing at the White Sox, Guardians. If you're thinking about trading with the Central teams, you might as well just give up, because they're all in contention, and they all may think they're in contention. So they may ask for a king's ransom for it. So it sucks to say, but I think Dodger fans should just get ready for a very quiet deadline with minimal changes. I actually think they may trade more players away to clear the 40-man roster when players come back from injuries. And then you'll start seeing people bad. But there's really no clear solution. You're just going to have to hope these guys come back from injuries.
Babyface, how does that make you feel to hear Cody say that they might not do anything and just trade players away? Because I saw Dodger fans not too happy about the offseason they had. If they see that they're not doing anything to address it, because Cody has a point, and I don't think this is talked about enough. When you're making trades, you need to have a willing partner. I feel like a lot of times fans go, why didn't they trade for this guy? And it's like, well, if the other team doesn't want to trade with you, or the other team's ask is ridiculous, like Babyface, our friends over at Baseball is Boring had proposed a trade that you shared this morning. You want to share that with our listeners?
Yes, I mean that's always been the main question, right? Like, okay, yeah, let's get Tim Anderson. Okay, yeah, let's get Marcus Stroman, right? That was the trade that was proposed this morning, and it's always seems to me it seems like it's an unfair ask, because like the Dodgers farm system is always, these players are ranked extremely high, right? So if the Dodgers number 2 farm player in the farm is number 2, right, and they get a number 2 from, say, the Reds, but in overall top prospects, that guy might not be ranked to 50th, and the Dodger guy is 20th in baseball or whatever, right? So it doesn't seem fair, right? But that's kind of what they're always after. Let me see if I can pull up that trade real quick. But it was a trade with,
it was Mark Leiter Jr. and Marcus Stroman for Pepio, Rushing Dalton, and then I forgot who the third guy was.
Yeah, Dalton Rushing, and let me see if I pull that up real quick.
I mean, that alone to me, Pepio and Rushing is too much for Marcus Stroman and Mark Leiter Jr.
And also, Stroman's going to be a free agent, right?
Yeah, that's That's too much, and that's always been my concern, is that this team has so many needs that they have to address. Are they going to have enough? Are they going to have enough pesos to make the deals? And then, I mean, is it even worth it? Like Cody said, Cody brings up, it's a good reality, Cody, and maybe it's better that our listeners start getting used to it now, as opposed to hope, because I know in past episodes, well, we're waiting for the trade deadline, or you keep hearing everybody, they got to make a trade, they got to make a trade. I was like, is there anybody out there that's better than what you got? I mean, is it going to just keep everything the same? They just maybe have to kind of hope that these guys, can fix it. But it just could be what you were also saying, Cody, that these guys have regressed to who they really are. There was a period there where they were good, but that was not an indicator of who they really were. And now we're seeing there's a reason why these guys were released. There's a reason why Friedman was able to pick these guys up so cheap. And which leads me to my next question, Cody. I don't know if you've noticed this, or maybe this is me just being too particular with this, but I feel that Dave Roberts has there's a lot of frustration starting coming out in Dave that seems a little uncharacteristic. And I'm not going to blame it on the Modelo. I don't know if everybody saw the Modelo that he was drinking.
I got it in my camera roll.
Which is nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But these guys have driven Dave Roberts to drink in public. That's all I'm saying. And but he's been very pointed in his criticism. And for a guy who has the reputation of being a player's manager, I was surprised about it. Like he went after Gonsolin hard. And while it's a valid criticism, I think, of Gonsolin, I was still surprised by it because I don't feel like he has that same energy when he's coming. Like he went after Caleb Ferguson hard, and then the next day, like almost walked it back and was just like, hey, yeah, Caleb was, he was much better this time. He gave up a walk-off home run. He hung one right down the middle. So for me, I guess what my question is I know a lot of the criticism comes towards Roberts. Are you starting to feel that maybe the criticism is starting to change towards Friedman, and it's going to get a little louder come the trade deadline when we see that the Dodgers aren't pulling off trades to try to fix these things?
I've always defended Roberts because I do think he's a really good manager. And I think this season is kind of him starting to be a tenured manager. Like he's been around there for a while. He's been the manager of the Dodgers since 2016. He's got a lot of playoffs, a lot of experience, and a lot of sadness over the losses they've had. And the fans have been driven crazy. But I think he's a good manager. Friedman is also probably still the guys that run the Dodgers, between him and Gomes, they're doing what they need to do year in and year out. The common fan, and I'll say this.
Go ahead, say those jabronis. Those jabronis, Cody.
They see seasons as year-by-year basis, and they always want to say the contenders need to contend, they need to trade away, they need to buy in. But for guys like us that know the sport and kind of see what their goals are, they're not looking at a year-to-year basis. They're looking at year 1 to year 5, year 1 to year 10. They plan for the future. And we're kind of in that transitional period where they're starting to, all right, we'll take a break. We'll still be in contention because they're still going to have a really good team the next couple of years, but they're not going to be that 105, 110 plus team that we've seen the past 3 seasons. And that just doesn't happen in baseball. What the Dodgers are doing right now just doesn't even happen in sports. There's only a couple other teams you can think of that have made the playoffs over 10 straight seasons and have had multiple World Series appearances and a championship under their belt. Like the only closest that you can think of in baseball terms is the Braves in the 90s, and they won 14 straight division titles. The Dodgers are looking at longevity, and the way you go about that is you don't try to win the year that you don't think you have the best capabilities. Like they can obviously go out there, make the playoffs, go on a run like the Phillies did last year with basically a 500 ball club, just going on, getting hot at the right time. The Dodgers could certainly do that. They have a lot of gritty guys that can kind of put it together and do it. But if you had to ask Freeman and put a lie detector test on him, and you asked him, hey, is this team going to win the World Series? If he said yes, it would probably start buzzing. And most fans kind of can see that, where I would be happy for a World Series win, but I also would rather just be in contention and get in the playoffs and get into the dance, because then anything can happen. And I think Freeman and the Dodgers kind of realized that over the past 3 seasons, because the biggest gripe that I have from watching the team for as long as I have is in 21, that was the year like when they went all in and it didn't work out. And but other than that, it's just playing the long game, and the Dodgers have been doing that fine. That's why Freeman and all them will be here for a long time. And for fans that still want them gone, well, you might as well just either get a new team or get used to it, because that's pretty much just how it's going to be. So
there we go, babyface. Now that is the second contributor. I mean, you're not saying what the boatman Jason Barquero was saying. Jason Barquero was pretty blunt about it and just said from the beginning of the season that the Dodgers have punted the season away. And if they end up winning the World Series, great. It's gravy. But they punted this season away, and it sounds like you're saying the same thing. And we've talked about this before, where it's very hard to try to do what the Dodgers are doing, where you're kind of restructuring the team, not necessarily rebuilding it, but at the same time you're trying to compete. So, babyface, before we let Cody go, have you come to terms with this? The fact that all our contributors are coming on here and telling us, hey man, they're not trying to win. If they something win, it comes out of it, great. But you guys better hope Ohtani comes to save us next season.
I mean, I wouldn't say they're not trying to win. I mean, they're trying to win. I mean, I don't think, and we said this, I said this from, it doesn't matter kind of where they finish, right? And I think that's the point. Like, as long as they get in, I don't think they need to.
Well, it does matter at that point, because if they finish outside of the wild card, then it matters where they finish.
They need to finish right in the wild card or in first place, right? We saw that last year. So I think that's the goal. If they get into the playoffs, anything happens in the playoffs, right? Like, I mean, last year they had the best team, right? They get knocked out in the first round. There's been years where they've been the best team in there and they get knocked out early. So I think that's what they're hoping for. They get in, they got the momentum, and then anything could happen, right? They could just go in and like Cody was saying, be the Phillies, right? I mean, the Phillies got to the World Series, and you look at the Phillies team, they have a lot of talent, but for some reason they're just not gelling. Like they're a good team. They got hitters, Harper and now Turner and Schwarber. Like, I mean, that's a crazy lineup, but they're not. For some reason, they're just not there. So yeah, I think that's what their Dodgers are hoping they could get in, and then go through it.
Yeah, I think that the Dodgers' plan from the get-go was just to get in, and I think like that's their plan every year, is just to get in. There's just some years where they know, hey, we're going to try to milk the opportunity. Like we have Seager this year. Let's trade for Trey Turner, Max Scherzer. Let's hope Kershaw comes back from his injury. Let's have an all-star rotation, all-star lineup 1 through 9. And then you kind of can't do that every year. It's not feasible. But the Dodgers, because of their depth and their drafting and their development, they're built regardless. They could not sign a single player next offseason. They probably still win almost 90 games. And I think the average fan that's watched this team the past couple of years, they just expect 95 plus when most teams aren't doing that. And you don't even have to do that anymore. The amount of teams that make the playoffs, I really think the threshold is shoot for 85 wins, and you could probably make the last wild card. And that's just how it is in baseball right now. So that's the kind of love-hate relationship with having so many playoff teams. With the Dodgers, their ownership, they're like, hey, we don't have to spend $400 million every year. We can just kind of take it back. They still went over the luxury tax this year, in case anybody forgot. But most owners don't have to do that anymore, and they could still feasibly get into that last wild card spot.
There you go. It's the business side of baseball, everybody. We have to accept it. It's part of the game. Cody, we want to thank you very much for joining us on the show. We love your insight. Again, for our listeners, our viewers, where can they read your stuff, Cody, and where can they follow you on the socials?
Right here at Dodgers Beat. If you go on our website, Twitter, all that, I post pretty regularly about player analysis and stuff like that. But I also have my own blog with me and my friend. It's at the Diamond Club Sports on Twitter, diamondclub.blog on the internet. You can look at all my social media pages. I'm primarily on Twitter at SnavelyCody6. But other than that, Dodgers will turn it around. Bobby Miller is going to keep it going. And speaking of Bobby Miller, before I go, I mentioned his Baseball Savant page came out, and I wanted comparing him and Gavin Stone. And what I want to compare about them briefly is the difference that I know for a fact it's probably the reason why I haven't translated well. Gavin Stone is primarily a two-pitch pitcher, fastball changeup. Another pitcher in the Dodgers history that was like that not that long ago was Kershaw, where he was a fastball curve pitcher. And they told him, hey, you have to get that third pitch. Bobby Miller has 5 pitches in his arsenal that are all at elite major league level. He's got the sinker, the slider, the change, a four seam, and a curve, that's going to help him for the rest of the year. And that's what I think separates him above all else. So I think he's going to keep going for the rest of the season.
Look at that. Look at Cody saving the gold for the very end. There you go. Now he just throws his hands up in the air and he walks out Costanza
Everybody buy
style.
your Bobby Miller jersey now. Invest. He's going to be.
No, don't buy 70.
You have to wait.
70.
Yeah, you have to wait.
Because I guarantee you he's not going to be 70, so don't buy. I mean, you might get it cheap, but don't buy 70.
DFA Syndergaard, he can take 43. I don't know. So.
Oh, wow. No mercy for the poor guy. You guys on the IL. But there you have it. Cody, thank you so much. We really appreciate that feedback there. And make sure you guys follow Cody Snavely and read his stuff. And joining us on the Carne Asada is pitcher of the month for the month of May in the California League, down in the minor leagues for the Rancho Cucamonga Quakes, which is the Dodgers affiliate, is Jared Karros. Jared, ¿cómo estás, amigo? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be on. I've heard this podcast a little bit, so excited to join it.
Oh, wow. You're the first person who actually acknowledges us. We thought nobody listens to us and we just talk to ourselves on the air. So, I mean, I will say this, since you brought it up and that you listened to the show, Jared, you're a first for us. This is the first time we've ever had a father-son on the show. Your dad has graced us on the show before twice, and now you. So you're a first for us on that. But awesome. Jared, does it seem fast to you? I mean, you were just drafted by the Dodgers in 2022, and now you're playing. Was that a quick process? I mean, walk me through the actual draft. Like, when they announced your name, did you get an inkling that the Dodgers were already looking at you?
Yeah, so I talked to them prior to the draft and had a little bit of an idea going into it that this could potentially be a possibility. And to hear my name called by them was truly a dream come true. I was super excited just to be able to be with this organization, obviously the history of it. My dad played for them. So, yeah, I'm super excited. Everything's been awesome so far, and I'm super excited to continue working and progressing throughout this organization.
I mean, I'm super jealous. So walk me through this, because I've never really I've the dream of playing any level of organized baseball in terms of when they negotiated that contract. Do you just sit there and go, whatever you want to give me, I'll take it? I mean, did you have an agent negotiate that? Did you have someone negotiating for you? Like, how was that process for you?
Yeah, so I did have an agent, and then also my dad was helping me out with some stuff. But to me, the money wasn't really a huge thing. It was more so just getting this opportunity to join this organization, all the resources they have. I've seen them help a lot of players get a lot better. And my career at UCLA, it was good, but I had a lot of injuries I dealt with. So just to be able to be in this organization and use their resources to get me back to full health where I'm at now has been super awesome. So that's what I'm most thankful and glad.
So that last year at UCLA, you didn't play, right?
Yeah, correct. I didn't play at all. I was dealing with a back injury.
Oh, wow. So you still got drafted even though you didn't play 2022. I mean, is that usually common? Is it just you're like, whatever you do your junior year, that's set? Like, going into that senior year in college, what is the mentality?
Yeah, so I think it's not the most common thing to be drafted after not playing at all your junior year, but it does happen. Luckily, I had some good outings throughout my career at UCLA, and they saw something in me that they liked. So I was very fortunate for them to take a shot on me, and so far things are going really well. So this has been great.
How was the experience at UCLA? I know they have a pretty good baseball program. Is it just the hatred towards USC? Is that why you just chose UCLA, or how was that decision made?
I think ultimately it was I really liked the location of it being close to home, and then the storied baseball program that they have. They've been notorious for developing pitchers there, and then also the academics factored into it. So just the combination of those three really made the decision pretty easy for me, and knowing that I really wanted to attend UCLA.
So you get drafted. Do you immediately go on some sort of workout program to prepare you for when the season starts with the Quakes? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so within a week of getting drafted, we went out to Arizona and we got physicals done, and then immediately I was put on a workout program and physical therapy stuff just to get my body in good shape for this upcoming year. Last year, the focus was really just on getting me back to full health and logging a few innings and instructs, but it was really about building towards this year and being healthy going into it and being ready to go this year. So, yeah, it's been great.
Did you get a chance to go to spring training at all this year?
Yeah, I was out there. I went out middle of February, and then I was there for about a month and a half. So spring training was awesome. It was really good to meet a lot of the guys that I haven't met before and just kind of pick their brains and just really see what the whole organization was about.
So you were in the big league camp then for a while?
No, I was on the minor league side.
On the minor league side. So did you ever cross paths with any of those big leaguers? Did you ever get a chance to pick any of those guys' brains?
During spring training, I did not, but throughout the off season, I was fortunate to work out at Dodger Stadium. So during the off season, there were a lot of big league guys that were consistently coming in. Gavin Lux was always in there. Miguel Vargas was in there a good amount. Chris Taylor. So just being able to talk to those guys and meet them was pretty awesome.
Was there any piece of advice that was different from them that you were just like, you know what, I've never really heard that, I'm going to use that? Or were they all pretty much telling you the same thing?
Yeah, it was a lot of similar stuff, just about continuing to work and not really getting too far ahead of yourself, kind of taking it day by day and doing what you need to do and not really focusing on the things that you can't control. So I think that was the biggest advice that they gave me that helped a lot.
So what is a bigger shock to you, being that you're a South Bay kid? Is it now that you're playing in the minor leagues, different talent aside from the college talent, or the fact that now you have to spend more time in Rancho Cucamonga? How's the city of Rancho Cucamonga treating you? Because I drove by there once on the freeway, and it was the longest week of my life.
No, so far, actually, Rancho Cucamonga has been really good to me. We got set up in good apartments, organizations helping us out there and providing us with really good apartment complexes. So that's been really, really good. I haven't gone out too much and explored, but mostly just spending my time at the apartment or the field, getting that stuff done. But yeah, no, Rancho's been pretty good so far, I got to say.
So you're part of like that new class, so to speak, where organizations now are paying for minor leagues housing, because before it wasn't like that, right, Jared?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my dad always tells me stories about the stuff he had to go through and just how fortunate I am now with all the new rules and all the stuff that they do for us now. So yeah.
So you're in Rancho Cucamonga. We have the stats here, and this is just, this is insane. And this is why I'm saying I don't think you're going to be in Rancho much longer. But look, this is just 1 month's work. But for those of you guys watching, look at this. This man has a 1.4 ERA. The league is hitting 164 against him. He's got a whip of .78, 25 Ks. Were you always a strikeout pitcher?
A decent amount, not a ton. I think it just comes down to throwing a lot of strikes. That's kind of what my strength is. So just being in the zone a lot allows me to get a lot more swings and misses, as we're seeing.
That's something they're really big on, isn't it? The coaching staff, they like that ability of the swing and miss, right, Jared?
Yeah, I think it just overall, yeah, they like swing and miss just because it shows that your pitch shapes are good and your pitch designs are working. So just, yeah, all of that coming up works well.
So what's the biggest difference that you've noticed from the college level to now in the minor leagues? Because obviously the pond is getting a little bigger and everybody that's there can play, right? I mean, they're there for a reason. So what are you seeing in terms of facing hitters is the biggest difference?
I would say the biggest thing is when you look through the lineups and you see guys from college, it's always the best players on the teams that you're facing. You're not facing just the random guys. It's always the good guys you're facing now. So just having to be super prepared and alert for those guys, I would say is a big difference. And also the game planning that goes into it. I know in college, I never really looked at anything on the hitters that I was facing, whereas now we have all kinds of data and metrics on these guys. So just being able to game plan and go into a game well prepared, I think that's been the biggest help for me.
Now, in high school, at least all my friends, and I always seemed like the best players, they played shortstop or something like that. And then all of a sudden they got to high school and they got converted to pitcher. Is that what happened to you, or were you always a pitcher from when you started playing baseball?
No, I actually didn't really pitch at all. I played first base was my spot. So I played that up until my junior year of high school, and then hitting just wasn't going well. So I was like, screw it, I want to stick with pitching because I always pitched a little bit, and then I really started to focus on it, and really glad that I did that.
I mean, you hear that. I mean, Kenley Jansen is a perfect example of that, right? The guy was a catcher and he struggled with hitting. So it's like, all right, you got a good arm. We're going to make you a pitcher. I mean, can you explain for us novices here? I always say, like, I see the camera behind the camera they're using with the umpire, and I'm seeing these guys throwing pitches, and I'm like, how the hell do you hit that? Like, I mean, it's a lot harder than what it is, right? You've got like maybe 3 seconds or less to make up your mind to hit a baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes as pitchers, we give the hitters too much credit and just like kind of forget how hard it really is to hit a baseball. So just like seeing stuff like that, videos from behind the home plate angle, it just really shows you how difficult it is to hit a pitch. So I think that's something to remember when you're on the mound is it's really damn hard to hit a baseball. So you got to just go after it.
I think not only is it hard to hit a baseball, but also some of the pitches, the movement on these pitches is just, I feel like sometimes they're throwing a wiffle ball and I'm just like, how do they do that? How many pitches do you currently have right now? And how many are you working on?
Yeah. So currently I throw 4 pitches, just traditional fastball, changeup, curveball, slider. And the biggest thing for that is just all the new analytic systems we have, whether it's TrackMan or anything like that, just allowing us to get instant feedback on every pitch we throw. So that allows us to tinker with things and, change grips, put pressure on different things, do something different with your arm position. So just all that goes into pitch design of pitches, which is allowing us to just get this insane movement that you're seeing nowadays.
Getting all that information, is it overwhelming sometimes? Is that like getting all that information, is it easy for you to get into your head instead of, like you said, it's like, hey, dude, it's really hard for them to hit a baseball. I'm just going to throw my best stuff. Here it is. Hit it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you overlooked it. You get too far into the analytical stuff versus just going and executing a pitch. I know for sure I've found myself sometimes asking, "Oh, what was the data on that pitch?" when clearly I saw it was a good pitch, so I don't need the numbers to back me up, or vice versa. It was a bad pitch, and I see, oh, it had a lot of movement, so it must have been good. Well, no, it was not a good pitch, and it got hit. So just stuff like that, you'll find yourself looking too far into it sometimes.
I want to be respectful of your time because I know you guys have practice. So we're going to start wrapping things up on the show, but I have a couple of questions for you. Is it true that Tommy Lasorda is your godfather?
Yeah, that is true. Very. very lucky to know him as well as I did.
Now, I mean, to me, that's crazy, right? To have he has been was one of the greatest characters in the sport of baseball. And even at his, when he was older, there's that great clip when the Dodgers were in the World Series in 2017, and they forced that Game 7, and they catch him telling Dave Roberts, "You haven't done shit yet." So even at his older age, Lasorda was still like coming at it. How much interaction did you see? Like, how much did you know about the legend of this guy? And then actually spending time with him, did you go, holy crap, this guy's my godfather?
Yeah, absolutely. Just when like being at dinner with him and hearing his stories about just certain things throughout his life, it was pretty amazing, all the stuff he accomplished. And up until the day he died, he still had that fierce competitive nature and just loved the Dodgers. So just being able to get to experience that and talk with him, it was awesome.
People have told us stories about his legendary appetite. If you went to dinner with him, Jared, was it true like that this guy, I mean, we've heard stories of people like his assistant would telling us like it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and he's saying, hey, let's go here now. Like, I mean, where did this guy get all this energy?
I don't know. It's a feat of God right there. But yeah, I remember going to we went to Grimaldi's one time in Arizona. We were out visiting for spring training, and I just remember the amount of meatballs this guy ordered was unbelievable. But they were damn good, I gotta say.
There you go. All right, so we're going to end the show the way we always end the show. We have a series of rapid fire questions. We call these our kickback questions. So the first one, I believe you're a surfer. Is that correct? That
is correct.
Please tell us, is it true? Once a surfer, always a surfer?
I think so. You fall in love with the feeling of surfing and just being in the water. It's really a great feeling. So yeah, absolutely. I got to stand by that.
There's no fear of sharks.
Not really. Although I did just see a study that said something about like there's a great white shark within your vicinity 97% of the time, they found out in Southern California. So that's a little, I don't know how about my return to the water, how that's going to be.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. There's this video going around on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw where this guy got like eaten by a tiger shark. Like they're literally filming this guy getting attacked. I couldn't finish watching the video because I was just like, this is crazy. So I don't know, you surfers, after I saw that movie with the girl who got her arm bit off, I'm just like, how do you guys keep going back out there? Jaws is one of my favorite movies, so I guess that's why I always have this irrational fear of getting eaten by a great white shark.
For sure.
Next question is, here on the show, we're big wrestling fans, so I'm curious. I mean, you're a young kid. You still might be able to be watching wrestling, but were you ever a fan of what we like to refer to as the male soap opera? Did you at any time watch wrestling, or are you just above it, Jared, because surfers have everything figured out?
Definitely not above it. We were really big into WWE back in the day when we were younger, and we actually went to SummerSlam. We went to WrestleMania in MetLife Stadium. So yeah, no, I was a huge wrestling fan back in the day.
Who's your guy? Who are some of your favorite wrestlers?
It was back when like Triple H was wrestling. I like CM Punk, Randy Orton, those guys. So yeah.
And how was that SummerSlam experience? Because I got to tell you, people who are just like randos, who are not really diehard wrestling fans, they always tell me, I went to an event and it was just crazy, the energy, and they became wrestling fans because they attended an event. You went to a major pay-per-view. I mean, SummerSlam, what was that like?
Yeah, no, the atmosphere is unbelievable. Just the chants that the crowd gets into and how into it they are, it's really something different. And also in our garage, we actually have 2 fat heads of one's Triple H and one's CM Punk in our garage still up. So, yep.
Oh, the legend of CM Punk, man, that's great. Last one for you, Jared. I mean, to me, I love CM Punk just because he wore the Macho Man Randy Savage trunks when the Macho Man passed away, and I thought that was awesome. Last one for you. Being that you're from the South Bay, you're a native Southern Californian, we need to know, we're big on tacos here on this show. Do you have a favorite taco, and where do you go to get that taco?
Yeah, I think my go-to spot's Brothers Burritos. They got them in Hermosa. They got some really good tacos and burritos. So yeah, Brothers Burritos is what I suggest for you.
So are you are you more of a burrito guy than a taco guy?
I'm more of a burrito guy. Yeah, gotta say.
Okay. What kind of burrito is like? What is your protein of choice that you're putting in there?
I like to go carne asada.
Carne asada. Do you put rice and beans in there too? Do you get all the fixins?
Gotta load it up, get the calories in, you know.
Well, I mean, you are a pretty tall dude, right? You're like 6'7", right?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jared. We really we appreciate you joining us. Much luck to you in Rancho, because I just don't see you there much longer. Hopefully you move up to the next level. Where can our listeners, our viewers, follow you on the social media?
Yeah, so my Instagram is just my name, Jared Karros. That's really the only social media I use a lot. So yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, there you have it, guys. The future here, the way the Dodgers bullpen is going right now, we might be seeing Jared Karros up in the major leagues sooner rather than later, because it's rough times right now. We need some people who can pitch, Jared. So continued much success to you.
Thank you. Really appreciate you having me on. It's been awesome.
This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast has been brought to you by betonline.ag, where the game starts. Nos vemos para la próxima.